The main ingredients, we've got the box with the model in it, we've got the instructions, we've got the cup of tea, got what used to be rail snippers which are now sprue cutters because I tried cutting something I shouldn't have with them and blunted them. A file for getting the little bits of plastic that are left over after cutting it off the sprue. The paintbrush, it's as small as I've got. Black and white paint because it's going to be grey and just need black and white for that. A plastic container that was light bulb packaging in a sealed Ziploc bag, plastic bag, so that the paint will stay wet. So what I found is that if I keep it in this bag, the paint won't dry out. I've got some water in another container there with paintbrush, and I got my magnifying glass with light for getting nice and close over the model. So here's the train shed unit out of the box. On its own, it's pretty good in terms of the coloured parts. Anyway, at least the grey of the shed, that looks to me like that's probably not bad. This is the roofing section. That's where the skylights go. But then the rest of it is brown, which I don't know. I'm not going to go with the assumption that I'd put this brown sort of skylight vent. I think goes on the angle of that. So I have already taken a paintbrush to some of the parts, so doors are going to be a light grey colour, and this is some kind of vent that sticks out of the wall, slightly off shade of grey than the other, conscious of not wanting to paint the entire building exactly the same tone, so I'll be mixing up different batches of paint now for the walls, the outside walls. I'll paint this and the end piece, the entrance into the train shed itself, and I guess I'll probably paint these up in one batch. Then I'll use a totally different batch for the roof section, so that there's some degree of contrast, but it should hopefully all harmonize in. So here's the pieces all painted up, and use different shades of grey. So it's going to be darker grey inside than on the outside, for example. Painted up doors, different shade of grey, and the vents been painted up black. So now we're in the assembly stage. Job number one is to assemble the doors. It's just the main part here. The doors clip in place, and this cross beam goes across the top, and one of the door panels needs to be inserted. Here's one that we made earlier, so to speak. So see, with the different shades of grey. Didn't want it all to be monotone, so the darker grey on the door. I didn't bother painting the rear of the doors themselves, so they're supposed to be a brown wood colour. Figured if it does look a little plasticky, if it needs toning down, it's easy enough with the model fully assembled to get to the inside of those doors. I really didn't want to mess with the yellow chevroning here to try and paint the brown that's in the middle of them. So assembly phase will commence. Step number 2, just inserting the doors and the air vents in to the wall section. There is a note here that says that these vents on the back have the word top, and the slats actually are horizontal, so if you weren't following the instructions you could potentially put them in vertically, which would be wrong. Step number 3 is to do these roof light frames. There's a clear sheet that we have as somewhat yellowed, but that's fine. Look like old cigarette smoke and diesel smoke, and that has to be cut in strips off of that big plastic sheet and cut to fit just inside the outer perimeter of the skylight. I will just make the roof section here, the skylight that we made earlier, the 2 side pieces and 1 roof panel. I'm not going to bother with this vented roof location holes. I've accidentally didn't follow the instructions that are actually further down this page here to tell you to cut off, leaving a little piece of plastic sticking underneath. So I've actually cut and flush mounted here, so don't think we'll be putting those on. Put those completed sections onto this frame here, and we're almost done. Finally, just stick the whole thing together. Well, finally for me, there's actually one more final here that says if you want to stick 2 of these models together, but we're not going to be doing that. Product. And I probably would go somewhere like there. The reason I wanted to make that was this is the end of the layout that I hadn't figured out yet. I'm now thinking put 1 set of points here, 1 side will come down to the turntable, 1 will go along the back here to another set of points. It'll run into an old single engine shed. This point will come down the side here, then off of the turntable there'll be 2 points that'll run into the diesel shed. I really don't like this. It's overscale, the corrugated, it's way out of scale with the corrugated on that. So this might get ditched in favor of, I'll just use the dimensions, do something scratch built. Or I use the Peco turntable that I got, which isn't motorized, whereas this Ratio 1, or is Atlas 1, is.